Hi, this is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Stories of the Supernatural. Wherever you find us, whether it's a video or podcast on your favorite platform, please like and subscribe to us so that you can get notification of when a new show is released. You can also find us on major social media platforms. If you go to miamighostchronicles.com, you can find links to the videos or MP3 files, which you can download and enjoy without commercial interruptions. If you're into classic horror, ghost, and adventure stories, I narrate Nightshade Diary, and you can find links at nightshadediary.com. If scary stories are your bag, and listening to encounters with cryptids, ghosts, dogman, and other weird creatures sends a shiver up your spine, then go to supernaturalstorytime.com for links to our weekly podcasts. Noteworthy news about the paranormal world, true crime, conspiracy stories, and anything that is just plain weird can be found at eerie.news or visit the Stranger Than Fiction Stories tab at miamighostchronicles.com. Please subscribe to my newsletter on Substack. Just go to mppellicer.com for a link. I want to thank you for being part of my audience, and I think you are all wonderful.
So, how's everybody doing? Good, I hope. Yes, it's me. And here we are in the new year, practically, even though this show's going to be staggered a little bit. Yep, we're right about to go into 2026. And I don't know. I keep saying it over and over. Dull is underrated. All right. Dull is underrated. So, yeah, in other words, I could use some dull. Anyway, yeah, I'm ready to as a matter of fact, I've been procrastinating. I've got a bunch. See, this is the thing when you decorate outside. Well, I've got some decorations inside from Christmas stuff, and then I've got some. And then this is the good part, where it's like, okay, I gotta take all that stuff down. So it's like I gotta like talk myself. I've got some. It's like I gotta take all this stuff down. That's it. Christmas is over, and so yeah, I gotta like work my stop procrastinating about that. Um, I know there's people out there that it's like March. They still got, or you see people as March and they're throwing out their Christmas tree, and yeah, but no, that it kind of gets to me. That's like, it's okay. That's what makes it special. But then the before and the after. But besides that, everything is good. Um, I wanted to, when I was the uh the articles I was going to look at today. Okay, uh, this is first one. This by the way is not. This is not the actual article I want to talk to you guys about. Okay. I'm gonna do a bet or let's see. You'll see what I mean. Hold on. Let me show you guys what I'm talking about. Because hold on. Because okay, this just came out, all right? And this is that they've discovered a ancient mega shark. This is off Australia of all places. 15 million years ago, before Megalodon. So, in other words, this is a bigger shark than Megalodon. All right. In the age of dinosaurs, before whales, great whites, or the bust-sized Megalodon, a monstrous shark prowled the waters off what's now northern Australia among the sea monsters of the Cretaceous period. All right. Now, all they've apparently have found is some vertebrae on a beach in the city of Darwin. And it's now the earliest known mega predator of the modern shark lineage. And it lived 15 million years ago. And it was huge. They're saying today the great white shark of present day measures on an average 20 feet. And what they published was that, let me see, the work was thought to be about 8. Okay, the ancestors of today, 20-foot great white was thought to be about 26 feet long. In other words, back then the great white were 26 feet long. Now this one I believe is they estimate was 50 feet long. Let me see if I can find that. Blah blah blah. It was Australia's. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, well, let's put it this way: this is the thing. Sometimes I wonder how they can get so much information off basically just a piece of bone, but I'll take their word for it. And what's really funny is this thing, they found it in the late 1980s in the 1990s, and it was only like 4.7 inches across, and it's been stored in the museum for years. And it was like 5 vertebrae, all right, that they came across in that beach in Darwin. Um, Importance of the Brazil, blah blah. Okay. Anyway, and I read the entire article. My question is the following: how long do you think it'll take before they make a movie about this? You think I'm kidding? They already made two Meg uh movies. How long do you think it'll take before they come up with a new movie for this shark? Right? That's that. If anybody will, I'll come back to it. I will revisit this theme because it's, as a matter of fact, here we are, 2026. How long do you think it's going to be before they come out with a new movie about the ultra beyond megalodon or something like that? Hey, as long as it's not Sharknado, right? So anyway, I thought I'd put that out because, and the reason why I say this is I'm tongue in cheek because I think that's lately Hollywood is so short on good stories that they'll pick up on anything. And this is one of them. So let's wait and see, And then let's go on to the real article that I wanted to talk to you guys about. This is out of Psychology Today, and it's talking about NDEs, near-death experiences. All right. And hold on. Here we go. And it's very interesting because basically, and I'll read it to you very quickly, I'll skim through it. You know how sometimes people will say, well, people that have near-death experiences and they report, oh, we saw some type of relative, that came to see them or one of those deals. Now check this out. Okay. There's talking here about encounters with deceased individuals whose death was unknown to the experiencer. All right. Those who study near-death experiences are occasionally confronted with cases that resist straightforward interpretation. The broader phenomena is well established. Millions of people worldwide have reported NDEs. What these experiences ultimately represent remains genuinely open, but within this already puzzling, experiences ultimately represent, or it's genuinely open, but within this already puzzling field, there exists a class of cases that complicates matters. All right. And again, and I'm sure there's people that have heard, even though they've kind of disproven it, that especially doctors who are around people that have the near-death experiences, that they, that it's, in other words, that they, how's this? They're having a brain thing, like a brain thing is going on, right? And they, in other words, they're making it up. How's that? That when they see deceased loved ones or they have these conversations with deceased loved ones, this is not really happening. This is just their brain having either lack of oxygen or just maybe if they're ill or anything like that. But let's see. Hold on. And I think that, you know what? There's been times that people have said, hey, you know what? It's been proven that sometimes they will have described people that are in another room, for example. In other words, that there's no way that this person could overhear or see unless they actually like floated above their body, that kind of thing. But anyway, here it is. The literature calls them peak Indarian experiences, a name borrowed from Keats' sonnet about the first European glimpse of the Pacific Ocean. The metaphor captures the element of surprise characteristics of these reports. During their NDE, the experiencer perceives someone they believe to be alive among the dead. A recent case a research group has documented illustrates the phenomena. A woman living in the United States had just returned from an extended trip to Europe when she fell seriously ill and was admitted to the intensive care unit. During the resulting near-death experience, she reported encountering her deceased father and grandmother, and to her own surprise, an elderly cousin whom she believed to be alive and well in another state. When she regained consciousness, she described this encounter to relatives at her bedside. Her mother then disclosed that the cousin had indeed died approximately 3 weeks earlier. The mother explained that her daughter's prolonged absence abroad, followed immediately by her hospitalization, had left no suitable occasion to convey the news. Like many others, this case is not without its difficulties. Indeed, most cases of this kind seem to be. The cousin had been 91 years old. Her death, while unknown to the experiencer, was not implausible, even if it was precipitated by an acute myocardial infarction, an event sudden in its own onset, though not medically unusual at her age. Weeks had passed between the death and the experience, leaving time for information to have reached the experiencer through channels she no longer remembers. But her husband, who was present and had been in Europe with the patient, insists neither he nor his wife had any knowledge of the death, and that the mother had deliberately withheld the news, first during their holidays and then as her daughter had to be brought to the ICU. But such assurances, however sincere, cannot be independently verified. One therefore thinks immediately of forgotten conversations, overheard remarks, or subconscious inferences from the cousin's age and circumstances, all of which seem considerably more plausible than what this case might otherwise suggest. Yet some features give pause. The experiencer's surprise at perceiving her cousin among the dead was immediate and striking, not only to her but to the witnesses present after she awoke from her NDE and first spoke. Such a reaction seems unlikely to have occurred or misremembered had the patient and her husband known of the death all along. Additionally, the family discussed the incident repeatedly in the weeks and months that followed, and their recollections of who knew what and when have remained fairly consistent over the years. Both living witnesses available for direct interview insist that the cousin's death was revealed to the patient only after she mentioned encountering her during the experience, and yet even consistent accounts may reflect a shared narrative rather than independent recollection. Okay, now, and it goes on to say cases of this kind have appeared in the literature for well over a century. The Victorian essayist Francis Power Cobb collected early accounts. Researchers Edmund Gurney and Frederick Myers described several in the Proceedings of the Society for Psychical Research. And William Barrett devoted a chapter of his deathbed visions to the phenomena. All right. Most recently, Bruce Grayson provided the most comprehensive review in 2010, proposing a typology based on the epistemic and temporal relationship between death and the vision. And it goes on. If you want to, you can read the rest of this. As far as what else it says, it's a very interesting article. It's in Psychology Today, and I think that adds a very interesting, how can I say, for people that want to explain away the near-death experience as something that the brain does to make up for dying or being threatened with death. That it does happen. That thing where you actually, she was surprised, in other words, to see someone that she thought was alive because she just went on vacation. All right. So, and that's one thing they clarified. It wasn't like she left and they were saying, oh, cousin so-and-so, she's going to, any minute now, she's going to, no, there was nothing like that. So food for thought, guys, about as far as what happens in the afterlife, or if there even is an afterlife, for those of you hardcore skeptics. Anyway, let's get on to the good part. The good part is who is the guest today at Stories of the Supernatural. She's been here before. Her name is Pat O'Connell. She is a semi-retired communications consultant who develops training, documentation, and marketing for high-tech industries, including aerospace and nuclear reactor operations. When she's not searching for alien bodies and artifacts, she focuses on writing her own fiction and nonfiction and helping others write and publish their books. We're gonna revisit and we're gonna talk more about the book that she wrote, which is titled Breakthrough. All right, which is a true story. Which, as a matter of fact, before we started recording, we talked that she's still in the midst of investigating it. Basically, having to do with alien visitation for a gentleman in Texas. His name was Clay Wheeler, who ran an aircraft he was an owner for a aircraft repair shop, and he had basically, if I remember correctly, unexpected UFO visitation and alien contact. And I'm going to leave out the best part until we get to talk to Pat, as far as what happened of that whole encounter and why she's still involved with it. And also that he ended up being abducted. In other words, it was a gradual process of the experience. Help me welcome her. How are you today, Pat?
Bring me back.
So how are you? Okay. I know. If you could bring up to speed, because I know that I'm going to have people in the audience which didn't hear our original interview. You originally it was your brother who had the contact with Clay. Is that correct, or how did that happen?
Right. Yeah. The way it started was my brother was an abductee. He believed he had been abducted by aliens, and I couldn't say he wasn't. So, but he was developing a TV reality show because he felt like the experiencers didn't get. It sounds like a Rodney Dangerfield line, but he felt like they didn't get enough respect, and it was like their experiences were real to them, whether they were some kind of psychological brain fart or it was real. Either way, it affected their lives profoundly. So he wanted to respect that and to tell their stories as accurately and faithfully as he could. So he talked to people all over the world, and he was interviewing them and planning on telling each one of their stories on an episode of this TV show. And then he met this Clay Wheeler, and he called me. He was in Connecticut, and I'm here in Texas. And he said that he had met this guy, and his story was so much bigger than just abduction. In fact, to this day, we're not even sure whether Clay was abducted. Now, I think the signs are all there, but he denied it. And we, of course, never got to the point of doing a hypnotic regression on him to find out. But he said, so Clay's there in Texas. If you could interview him and find out if he's the real deal, first of all, because if he's kind of off his rocker, I'm not going to waste my time coming down there.
And people, they don't realize that that's important in the scheme of things. Yes.
Right. And so I'm like, sure, I'd be happy to. And he said, and this story is so broad. It's not just aliens. It's not just UFOs. It's poltergeist and demons and portals and possession. And, I'm sure I'm leaving a bunch of things out because it was just, oh my gosh, so many things. And so he said, and if you're interested, you could maybe write a book, because he said, I can't possibly cover all of his experiences in a 1-hour TV show. Even if I did multiple episodes of it, I still couldn't cover all of this. So he said, maybe you could write a book or 3 or 4 or write screenplays or whatever. And I'm like, sure, I'd be happy to. This sounded fascinating to me. And then he said, oh, by the way, the guy says he's shot and buried an alien.
Oh,
and as you can imagine, my eyes bugged out. And the skeptic part of me is saying, this couldn't possibly be true. This has got to be crazy.
You got it. Yeah.
And the other part of me was saying, the curious, open-minded person part of me is saying, oh my gosh, if this is true, this would be the biggest thing ever in humanity. I mean, never mind the alien autopsies. This would be the real deal. And so I'm like, sure, I'm in. So that's how I got started in this process. And then, and then I went to the airport, and Clay was no longer living there. He had moved out because all of his experiences happened within like a 3-year period.
So let me ask you, he was living on site there at or he just worked there originally?
He lived there. He owned a hangar.
Okay.
And in the airport, and it was a teeny tiny airport. So I'm like, no control tower. I mean, sometimes he was the only one there. So he had the hangar. There was an office in the middle, and then on the other end, he built an apartment. so that he and his wife could live there while they were building a house on some land they owned nearby. So he was living there, but he also had the hangar, which was their shop, and he had multiple employees, and they repaired airplanes and fabricated new parts and did all kinds of stuff like that. But nothing had happened. He had been there for several years. Nothing had happened. And then suddenly in 2010, it started out slowly, but that, first there were sightings of lights doing strange things in the sky. And then he'd play with them with a laser beam, and then they'd move around. And then after a while, then they'd zoom in, and he could see they weren't just lights in the sky, they were ships. And we can get into some details with that, but that's kind of how it started.
Okay.
And it was it was 3.5 years, but nothing had happened before that. And so
was this like out in the middle of nowhere?
It is out in the middle. I'm telling you, boonies, boondocks. I mean, we have to drive like 3 hours from where we live in civilization to get to where he is.
Okay. Right. So this is not also, because I know people say, well, could it have been a plane? Like when you live closer to urban areas,
right?
If he's in the middle of and this is what people don't understand is when you live in the middle of nowhere, there's no light pollution,
right?
You can see a lot of things that normally, as far as seeing it for what it is.
Well, and also he was a pilot. He was an instructor. He repaired planes, so he knew what things in the sky were. He knows what a blimp looks like. He knows what a plane looks like. He knows what I don't think there were drones so much back then, but he was able to, he knew even when a light in the sky was moving in ways a plane can't or a satellite can't, turning right angles. And we see that now, looking at the disclosure stuff and what the government is showing us. And these vehicles, you can't make right turns in a plane.
Exactly. Right.
You can't hover and then zoom off at, however many thousands of miles an hour in a blink of an eye without, like one guy said, without becoming juice on the wall. If you're the pilot in one of these craft and it makes one of those kind of turns,
you understand exactly, like the maneuverability. The planes, as far as we know, they don't allow for that.
Right. So the setting is that Clay understood, even with the dots, even with the lights in the sky at that point, that something's not right. Whatever these things are that I'm looking at aren't, they're not craft that I'm familiar with. So that's where he started into all of this.
At what point did he start? How's this? At what point did it go from that he started to worry? How's that like,
Wow. Well, actually, I would say probably early on, because one day when he had finished a piece of equipment or repairs on a plane, he would take pictures of it because the insurance companies needed to see the repairs.
Right.
And so he had just switched over from a film camera to a digital camera. So he was just learning how to use it. And they had repaired a wing, and he was shooting from underneath because that's where the repairs were. And he was shooting up into the sky. And so he takes the camera, the new digital camera in, and he has his secretary help him figure out how to get the memory card out and put it into his computer and look at it. And he saw this splotch in the air on the image. And he thought, shoot, there's dust on the lens. But he's like, this is a digital camera.
Right.
And the subsequent pictures didn't have that same thing on the lens. So he figured out how to zoom in, and he saw that it was this silvery, he called it the pork pie hat ship. And again, there's nothing like that in our aircraft inventory, our space inventory, nothing like that. So you asked, when did he start to worry? Well, at this point, he's seeing something that shouldn't exist. And he works he works under the auspices of the FAA, the government.
Right.
So as everybody knows, pilots don't dare report UFOs because they'll, they won't be able to work. Military people, until now, I mean, now there is some disclosure coming.
But still, I'm sure there's a lot of people that just opt not to say anything.
Right. Like, and so in those days, he's like, that's the kiss of death. We'd lose our business. So really he started worrying then because he couldn't say anything to anybody.
Right.
And then one night they were working on I forget what he called it, but it was like an emergency project where they had to get the airplane back in the air as quick as possible. So he and a couple of his employees were working with him, and they're working long hours and, just kind of pushing through the night. And one of the guys goes out the door. He didn't even bother to go to the restroom. He just goes out the door because it's, like I said, middle of nowhere. And he, relieves himself and he comes back in. He's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And they're like, what? And he saw something. So the three of them go out, and there's this orange reddish craft. It looks sort of cigar shaped. So Clay runs back in, and Clay hadn't said anything to anybody about the pork pie hat. So he comes back in, he gets his binoculars, and he's looking through it, and he's realizing that it looks like a cigar shape, but it's really a disc that you're looking at on edge. And so the other guys are grabbing the binoculars and they're looking at it, and he's trying to downplay it, again, because he doesn't want to lose his license with the FAA. He doesn't want to lose his job, his livelihood. And so he's saying, well, maybe it's a blimp, maybe it's the Goodyear blimp. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that.
Right. And it's like, you're like stuck, like, okay.
Yeah. But in his mind, he knew that's not what it was, because he knows what that looks like.
Exactly.
But the other guys, they're grabbing the binoculars from him and they're looking at it, and they're looking at him like, that's not a blimp, but they're not saying it. They're just giving him a funny look.
Right.
And finally, I think the thing just hovered there for a long time. And then he said, well, we got work to do. And they go back in. Nobody ever said anything about it. And it wasn't until one of the guys, and a lot of other bad things had happened out there, that one of the guys said, that's it. I'm done. I'm leaving. I can't work here.
Oh, so it actually scared one of his workers away?
Well, the other ones were scared, but they weren't scared off. But this one guy was like, I can't work here anymore. And Clay's like, why? And so the guy says, are you telling me you haven't seen all of this stuff that we're all seeing? And some of the other guys are kind of looking around like, you're saying the quiet part out loud.
Right. That's what we're all thinking. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he called everybody into the shop, and he says, okay, basically what happens here stays here. Who else is seeing or experiencing weird things? And then they go around the circle, and everybody, like the poltergeist thing, where one guy says his wallet disappeared, and it ended up in the supply cabinet where the secretary keeps like pencils and paper clips. Right. And he even had to have her recut his paycheck because it was in his wallet.
Okay.
And then they found it. But how would it have gotten in there? Exactly. It's just, and Clay, one night Clay was in there by himself. He was in the hangar, and his wife was moving stuff in. They had a house in town, and she was moving into the new apartment that he had built on the other end. And he couldn't find his keys. He was trying to lock up the hangar, and he had a shipping container outside where he had extra supplies for work, and he actually kept materials because he had a hobby. He not a hobby, but kind of a side business. He restored antique weapons, guns. Okay. He would create replicas and things like that. So he had stuff for that in there too. So he couldn't find his keys to lock it up. And so he hollers to his wife, have you seen my keys? And she says, well, did you look in the two places you always keep them, on your, either, in your pocket or in the top drawer of your desk? And he had already looked there. Right. And he knew that it's not just a bundle of keys. He had this red tag, and it said remove before flight. And it was the kind of thing that when you replace or repair a part on the airplane, you put the tag on there to make sure that it's been done. And then when you check off the checklist to say, okay, we finished this, you remove the flag. Well, he had one of those on his keychain, and so it wasn't easy to lose track of it.
Right. It was like, you can see your all your keys across the room. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So he looks and he goes out to the shipping container. He thought maybe he left them in there in the lock in that. And he looked everywhere, looked in his truck, looked in his apartment, couldn't find them. And then the heat kicked on. It was in the winter, and the overhead big heating unit, because you know what a hangar looks like.
Yes.
And so it's noisy and blowing air, and he starts hearing this little flicking noise. And he looks up and he sees this red tag in the ceiling of the hangar, 30 feet up. His keys were up in the ceiling of his hangar. How in the world?
He must have wigged out. He must have been.
I know. And so, this is the kind of thing, it's like stuff happened there that didn't happen other places. I mean, the only comparison I could come up with was, the original Skinwalker Ranch story, when it was just the rancher and his wife and their family. Yes. Right. When they saw blue orbs, they saw
the Shermans before that.
Yes.
Bought yes.
Right, and they saw a what looked like a motor home off in the distance, UFO kind of thing.
Man, when you listen, they it's incredible what they witnessed. I think it was 2 years that they were living there. It was incredible.
Yes, and I go back to their story because I feel like that one's more credible than all the high tech. You can use high tech to claim anything. I mean, it's interesting for TV shows, but for me, the most personal stories were the Sherman stories. There was a portal that they saw, and that wolf. Remember that?
The one that when they got there is taking one of their calves. In other words, these people are just ranchers that bought a piece of land and they're just trying to live.
Right. And so they weren't looking for notoriety or anything, but they just had these weird experiences. Like the man would have a tool that he was using, he was putting in fences or fixing fences, right? And he'd set the tool down and go in, and then he'd come out and that tool was gone. Right. And he's like, it was just here. I just left it there. And then he'd find it like way farther down or in some bizarre place, kind of like when Clay's employee lost his wallet and it ends up in the supply cabinet.
Well, you know what? And don't you remember that they said that when they moved in there was a bunch of weird stuff like inside the house, like there were bed bolts and
yes, there were a lot of locks.
Right.
Yes, I remember that. Yes,
like that they were like trying to figure out like what is this? And what's really funny is that the owners that were there before, it was a couple. And the one that sold the ranch, I think, to the Shermans, I believe, they had both passed on. And if I remember correctly, they didn't have kids. And I think it was like a brother-in-law who had the property. And he's saying, no, they had lived out there I want to say 60 years.
Yeah.
Right. They lived there like a long time. And according to them, nothing had ever happened. But I'm thinking, I don't know if that's really accurate. How's that?
Well, you don't know. I mean, it makes me wonder, are certain people magnets for paranormal?
See, the thing is that the fact that the house had all these weird things in it, the locks.
Yes.
That's the part that I'm like, you know what? Maybe these people were having these experiences and they were like, we'll just deal with it. And they didn't say anything to anybody.
Yeah, because they were afraid of the stigma or whatever.
Or it was like, well, and we tell somebody this and what are they going to do?
Yeah.
And the brother, whoever that sold it, he was like, man, I just want to sell this piece of land and just move on with my life. If I start saying that they were hearing or seeing things for many, many years,
Yeah.
then this thing I'm not gonna be able to I believe the last name was Myers or something like that. All right, and they and I believe there was another guy who was a high school teacher who had been documenting UFO sightings there for years, on and
Huh.
off, and like outside of this whole thing on the Sherman Ranch prior years in the area.
Yeah.
He was one of these like not a citizen journalist, but he was doing he even had like files, like he would go interview people, and he had like a science class, and they would see when he saw these lights and things like that. So he had cataloged for years a bunch of different people in the area having seen lights and weird stuff. In other words, that there was stuff going on there in the whole area. And again, I'm not convinced, because when you hear these stories about the Shermans, but you find that house with all that weird stuff.
Yeah.
To me, it was like something was already going on there. But from what I understand, and I don't know how accurate this is, they said that, when Bigelow bought it, and he bought in that whole scientific team. You remember
right?
There was one of the lead scientists. His name was Colm Kelleher.
Colm Kelleher.
Right. That he wrote a book, and he described how some of the people that worked there, that even when they went home, they started having paranormal experiences at their house.
Yeah, that's scary. That's very scary.
Even seeing wolf-like creatures, and they said these were people that even just let's say security, or people that weren't really actively involved in the running. They were just there. When they would go back home, I guess they were downtime in the ranch or something. They were having all these weird, really, really, really weird, unusual, and frightening experiences at their houses, which were sometimes hundreds of miles away from there.
Right.
And along the lines of what you were saying, that here it sounds like this is incrementally going from I'm seeing lights in the sky to all of a sudden your keys are being suspended 30 feet from the ceiling. That's incredible. That's like, there's no, how do you argue that somebody put that up there?
Right.
Or that you forgot it.
Or you lost them up there.
Yes.
No, or you threw them up and No.
So what did he do after that? That he's like, he must have, at this point, you can't logic your way out of that one.
No, but he was just kind of swallowing all of this. He was just kind of keeping it to himself, obviously, until they had that kind of a meeting with everybody, and they confessed what they had seen. And some other guys had actually seen the pork pie hat, and they didn't say anything to him for the same reason he didn't say anything to them.
Let me ask you, had he ever had UFO experiences prior to this? Like
no.
When he was a kid, nothing.
No. Well, okay. This I found out by talking to his mom.
Okay.
She told me that when he was about 5 and his sister was a little older, I think, the family went on vacation in their travel trailer driving to Alaska. Okay. So they drove to Alaska. They're seeing the sights. They're on their way back from Alaska with the travel trailer behind the truck. And it was getting late. Everybody was getting tired, and they felt like they couldn't make it to the next rest stop. So they just pulled off to the side of the road, and everybody piles into the travel trailer and they go to sleep. And in the middle of the night, the mom wakes up, and she said she was hearing this clicking sound outside. And she said, but it was like communication. So she would hear something here and then a response over here.
Okay.
And she said there were multiples around the travel trailer. And she said, for some reason, she was absolutely certain it was aliens. And she said, I have no idea why I thought that. Aliens weren't in the media. Nobody was talking about this. Would have been in the 50s.
Right.
I don't even know if Betty and Barney Hill's story had, I can't remember. I think theirs was in the 60s.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And so it was not a thing back then. But she was absolutely certain. And so she was like scared to death. And she was afraid that they were going to abduct her kids. Okay. So she tells her husband, we've got to get out of here. So of course, she sends him out of the travel trailer to where,
he must have,
to get into the truck and
Right.
zooms out of there. But years later, obviously, I'm talking to her,
Right.
and she's telling me about this clicking sound. And I remembered that on one of my brother's, he had started to put together, it's called a sizzle reel, where it's just a kind of a teaser or a trailer for a video only. It was designed for investors for a TV show. And it shows, kind of here's the key players, the investigators, and then here's some examples of experiencers that we would be interviewing and blah, blah, blah. So in the sizzle reel that I had, my brother's team were, I think it was in Sedona, Arizona. They were out in Arizona, and they were, I believe, at like an airplane graveyard, where there are all these airplanes, sometimes big jumbo jets that are just discarded. And they were filming, and there was this really weird interference, is what I call it, but I'd never heard any kind of interference like that. It was kind of a clicking sound. And so while I had his mom on the phone, I said, hold on, let me play this for you. And so I played it for her, and she said, yes, that was the sound.
That's interesting. That is very interesting.
I don't know
of all
why.
Things, clicking. I mean, wow.
Yeah. And actually, if you go on to experiencers.com, I've got I did a little memorial video for my brother when he passed away. Okay. And in that, I included the sizzle reel. So if somebody's interested, they can go experiencers.com. It's with an X at the beginning. But in the memorial, in the little tribute to my brother, I included that whole sizzle reel. So if you watch the sizzle reel, there's a point in there, if you're paying attention, and I think it's one of the girls on the team when she's on screen, but you hear this weird interference. Right. And I've never heard of anybody throughout all of the UFO lore. I've never heard anybody talk about this, which is why I thought it was special that Clay's mom described it that way. And then I had this example of what I thought sounded like it. And she said, yes, that's what it was. So to me, that's, I think, unique in all of the UFO lore, as far as I know.
Let me ask you, did she ever tell you what state they were in when they pulled over? If they were leaving out Alaska? Was it Washington? I don't know. I'm curious because you hear so many weird things that go on in Washington.
I think she did. And I'm trying to remember now. There's been, I've got so much information crammed in my head. I want to say it was like Idaho or Montana or someplace like that.
Okay. Yes, but let me tell you something, that would wig me out. You come out of a sleep.
Yeah.
And you hear something clicking outside. It's like, what in the world?
And it's alternating back and forth
the
way a conversation would happen, And it's not crickets.
She's telling her husband, guess what? You got to
go. You got to go. Well, what if they're out there? You got to go.
We got to leave. It's like, I'm not going on. You are.
And interestingly, Clay said his dad would never talk about it. Yeah. Never talk about it. Yeah. So for all we know, he jumped out of the travel trailer and saw something.
Who knows?
And didn't want to talk about it.
No, because that's why I'm saying that even the people maybe that owned what eventually became the Sherman Ranch, they saw things, and it was just, that was a time period, like you said, that you just didn't talk about that.
Yeah.
You just didn't talk about that.
Yeah.
It was, you didn't want to be that person. Everybody like, oh yeah, so and so. Yeah, I think
Right. Yeah.
You either got accused of being crazy or drunkard.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So here he goes. He finds his keys up there.
Yeah.
And so I think what he's realizing, this is not just something I see in the sky anymore. It's here.
Right. Yeah. And so, I mean, one of the things that he thought was most pervasive was this mood altering energy or something. I don't know what it was, but he said anybody who would come, like when his employees would come to work, their moods would turn dark. Okay. And they would be easily angered, and they were picking at each other. And the one who was affected the most by this in really dramatic ways was his wife.
Okay.
And so she moves from their rental house in town. She moves into the little apartment at the end of the hangar building. And I think one of the first instances was that she was getting really angry.
Okay.
And she used to be a really sweet person, wouldn't swear if she had to, just very caring. And all of a sudden she gets grouchy and like, I don't know.
Right.
And
Like
so
it's not like you're having one bad day kind of deal. It's like,
right,
yeah.
exactly. So they were out to dinner. He thought, well, maybe I'll cheer her up. I'll take her out to dinner before she had to go to work. She was a nurse. She had to go to the night shift.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've had 2 cars. And so they go to the restaurant, and she takes offense to something he says, and she storms out. And so he goes out with her, and he goes out to her truck, and he's trying to calm her down. And he's standing there. She's in the truck. He's holding his hand on the door and trying to calm her down. And, I didn't mean anything by it, and whatever it was.
Right.
And she slams the door with his hand in the door of the truck, and then proceeds to drive off.
What?
Yeah.
What?
So she drives like 1.5 miles.
Oh, no.
With him hanging from the door with his hand slammed into the door. And I've thought about this so many times. It had to be only thanks to the fact that there's a rubber gasket in the door, that he didn't like completely break all of his fingers. But he did end up, he broke several ribs. He broke bones in his, I want to say, both legs and one arm.
But let me tell you something, Dad, what's wrong with, I mean, don't get me wrong. I know people can get mad, and I know that, my husband and wife, but there's got to be something wrong with you when you do something like that.
Right. That? And then so she's driving along, and then at some point, I don't know how she couldn't know he was there.
Of course.
He was screaming. He was beating on the truck, trying to grab something with his other hand, so he's not hanging by this one hand, ripping.
Let me tell you something. I don't mean to be dramatic, but that almost sounds like attempted murder.
Well, yeah. So at some point, she opens the door. He rolls out. So now he's got abrasions on top of the broken bones. And I don't know what happened after that, because he's saying he passed out. He ends up in the hospital with all these broken bones. And I guess the wife took him to the hospital. But how does she explain how this happened?
Of all things, she's a nurse. Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. So that was the first thing. The second thing was she woke up one morning and her belly was swollen. Like his mom said, it was like she was 8 months pregnant.
Okay.
And his first thought was, what is wrong with you?
Right.
What kind of awful thing is happening to you that, were you stung by something? Do you have some really bad disease? Are you going to rupture? Is the alien, from the movie going to come out? And, she was kind of blithe about the whole thing. And he's like, I've got to take you to the hospital. Well, she's like, I'm not going to the hospital. And so he goes to get her some clothes to get her dressed. And he finds her in the kitchen, and she's eating raw ground meat out of the fridge that was thawed out for dinner. And, he's like, okay, that's really weird. And so he's like, I've got to get you dressed. We've got to go to the doctor. And she's running around avoiding him. I don't need to go to a doctor. There's nothing wrong with me. How she could not say something was wrong with her.
Okay. And I'm gonna interrupt you, because you're saying that after she dragged them around, they stayed together. I don't know.
Yeah.
God bless that man. I know he's dead.
Yeah. Well, and we'll get to the thing that was finally the last straw. But even then, love can be so blind.
Oh yeah. That's a nice way of putting it. Okay, go ahead.
So the only thing that bothered her about her belly was the fact that it was ruining her figure. She was very into how she looked and everything. And so he's trying to get her dressed to take her to the hospital, and she's running around the apartment, and she climbs up on the couch. She's running back and forth kind of on the couch cushions. And at some point, she kicks him in the head, and he falls over, and they had a tile floor, and he hits his head, and he's knocked out. So when he comes to, she's gone. And he doesn't know what to do. He starts calling all around, and have you seen, because he can't go looking for her. He has no idea where she went.
Right.
And if she comes home, he wants to be there when she comes back. Right. So nobody knew where she was. Nobody had seen her. And then several hours later, she just comes nonchalantly walking back in, and her belly's flat.
That's weird.
And that was the end of that story. The third story was, so he says, this place is affecting everybody, but it's affecting you the most. And I'm worried about you. So I think you should go stay with your sister for a while until we can figure out what's going on here. Because, I just don't know what's going on with you. And
so, but in other words, her personality change came about mostly after she moved out to that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so she goes to stay with her sister.
Okay.
And one day he and his team are working at the shop in the hangar, and she shows up at the hangar with his, I keep getting it wrong. I think it was his 38 and revolver. And she proceeds to start shooting.
What?
Yeah. She unloads the revolver. I think it was like 5 shots in it. Fortunately, nobody got hit. I mean, there are tanks of gas out there like that they use for welding and things like that.
Tell me that was the event that finally
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that after that, he got a separation, and then he got divorced after that. But they called the police.
Let me tell you something. She sounds like she was having some type of psychotic break, or something was going on with
Absolutely. So yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want to be. Let me ask 100 miles.
Do you think I'd shut my eyes? I wouldn't be able to sleep next to somebody like that. I'd be like, no. Yeah. So, I mean, that was one of the non-UFO things that. But again, like you said, this thing that she's having these severe personality changes after she moves out there.
Right. And actually, it wasn't just at the airport. There was a guy, a former military guy. I think he was high up, like a captain or a colonel or something like that.
Right.
And he committed suicide. So that was in the larger area around the airport. So I don't. Okay. And being the good kind of skeptic that is open-minded, I'm trying to figure out, could there have been something in the air or the water that was affecting people? Okay. Was there something that could have caused hallucinations that would make them see things?
How long had he been working out there?
He had been there for, I want to say, at least 5 years, and nothing happened.
That's what I'm going with that. Like, if he's been out there all this time, and it's just business as usual, what happened? In other words,
So the skeptic in me says the same thing. I asked him, what changed? What is there anything different that had happened in 2010 or before 2010?
Right.
And he said the only thing he could think of was that there was a drilling rig. They were drilling for oil, exploratory well that had been drilled at the south end of the airport, and they didn't find anything, so they pulled it out. I think it was only in there for like 6 months. But he said ever since, after that, there was this sinkhole. So every couple of times a year, the county would come out and they'd have to bring sand and gravel and whatever to fill in this sinkhole. So my thinking is, was there a pocket of some kind of gas that they tapped into when they were looking for oil? It wasn't something that they wanted. But is it something that could have been released that could have affected people, but it wouldn't have lasted for 3 years?
Considering, and also I imagine over there it's open air.
Right.
Anything comes
Right.
out, it's going to drift away.
Yeah. And I thought, well, what about the water supply? I don't know how it would have gotten in the water supply. That would actually affect people in a broader area.
Sure.
But you would think, water companies have to test their water for stuff.
I mean, I imagine that where he was at, didn't he probably have a well or something? That's where he pumped his water from?
I don't know. I don't know if he got water from the city or from a well.
What,
That's a good question.
Yeah. Considering if he was way out there, more than likely he had a well, one of those electric pumps or something.
Could have been. Could have been. I'll have to ask that when we go out there. I know that there are oil pipelines out there.
Okay.
I mean, it's Texas. There's oil all over the place. So I do know that there are oil pipelines out there. So, could they have tapped into the water supply? Could they have contaminated, like you say, if there was a well, could they have contaminated a well? Yes. That's a really good question. And I need to look into that. I don't know who would test.
They usually, in my experience, it's the county. And what they do is they even take soil samples because, it'll bleed, of course, you have an aquifer.
Right.
And they'll even take soil samples and water samples if you have a well already. And they can tell just by testing it if there's like any contamination.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just thinking, okay, like you said, okay, let's take the UFO aspect out of this.
Right.
Something affecting them.
Right. Well, and one of the weirder things, it's all weird, was that he saw the runway lights moving around.
Okay.
He swore up and down the runway lights were moving around. And I saw a couple of pictures. He said, here's a picture of the runway light moving around. I'm like, no, that's a picture of camera shake. You're taking a picture at night and the light from the runway light makes an impression, and then you jostled the camera or the whatever. And so it moved a little bit. And I could show him how that happened. But so there was that. But he said sometimes they would flip around in the air, which I could not explain with camera shake. And the final piece of that was one of the times when he was injured or sick or, he was not well because of the various things that were going on out there. His mom had come out to check on him. And she had been saying, you're hallucinating. This can't be possible. She's such a straight arrow. She would never lie. And so she's thinking,
what's going on with you?
That can't be real. That can't be real. Yeah. What's wrong with you? And then one night she came to check on him, and she's driving it up past the airport.
Right.
And she looks over and she sees a runway light doing somersaults in the air.
Wow. Oh my God.
I talked to one of my friends in MUFON, and we're both going, now we know the runway lights did not pull themselves up out of the concrete pads and flip around in the air. So what could create this appearance that they were doing
illusion.
That?
Exactly.
Yeah. And, we're like, okay, it's hot in Texas. Is it heat shimmer? That's a reach. I'm really at a loss to find a conventional explanation for that, but it can't be that the runway lights were pulling themselves up out of the concrete.
And the truth is, if you got somebody, let's say, that says, I'm going to make something up, of all the things you're going to make up, the runway lights are flipping around.
And that's kind of the hallmark of so many of the things that make me believe Clay, because it's like, who would make this up?
Now, let me ask you, and this is what it sounds like to me also. It sounds like once this thing went into his life, he started becoming isolated, because from what you're telling me, his marriage breaks up.
Yes.
His workers are like, I'm out of here.
Yeah. And there was a slow attrition of the workers over over the 3.5 years. He, the business kind of went downhill. Because the business was going downhill, he lost employees. He was getting sicker and sicker, and damaged. I mean, he got dragged, and then he had he said he developed a pulmonary clot, an embolism the size of a quarter. And he said, the doctors told him that a normal man, that would have killed them. Meanwhile, he's walking around with this for...
How old was he at this time?
I think it was in his late 40s.
Okay.
Because when I knew him, I think he was in his 50s.
Okay, so the doctors are saying you're a dead man walking in a way. Because...
Yeah, and when I met him, we're walking around the airport. Now, he doesn't own it anymore, so we couldn't get in the hangar or anything. But he said, I can walk about 10 feet and then I get short of breath because of that embolism or clot or whatever it is in his lung. And so, he was going downhill. The business was going downhill. All of these events kind of played together. And we haven't even talked about the aliens yet.
Right. So this is like a prelude to what, actual contact with them? Right. Wow, this poor guy. And so let me ask him, does he stay living out there after everybody splits? Does he stay out there by himself?
Well, at the end of the three, it was like 3.25 years. It was around Easter time. He finally moved out. His mom really made him move out because she was afraid she was going to lose him. All of this bad stuff was happening to him.
Right.
And she's like, you have got to get out of here. And so when I met him, he was talking about finding another hangar somewhere else. And he had invented some tools. And so he was looking at getting licenses, and he had them patented and things like that. So he was planning on moving all of his equipment somewhere else and starting over in another place. But he moved out of the hangar into an apartment that his mom and stepdad had built onto their house so that he'd have his own place to live. So
mom's to the rescue.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. She probably was thinking if he stays out there or if he stays away. Yeah.
Well, she was saying to me that moving him out of there nearly killed her because, she had to hire people, and this is like heavy equipment.
Right.
And, and so I think she had to pack it up into 2 shipping containers, which they moved
because I
out to
imagine
her
he had
house.
all these tools and things.
Yes.
I imagine.
Yes. Yeah. So, repairing airplanes takes a lot of equipment, and like he had, like I said, there's huge, tall, probably as tall as a person, tanks full of acetylene gas, propane, other kinds of, volatile gases that they needed for their work.
Right.
So,
she gets him out of there. Good for mom. And then what happens? But he can't go back on the property either, from what you're telling me, right? Because he's not allowed there, or what happened?
No, he could go back. But he didn't want to, because it was, it was represented a terrible part of his life, but it also represented a fascinating part of his life.
Right.
He loved seeing the UFOs. He loved the idea that he could one day potentially communicate with them. He thought, you guys know stuff about the world and the universe and everything. I want to know what you know. One night he packed a bag, and he packed a bag. He sat out on a lawn chair on the runway, and he was ready to go. He wanted them to take him for a ride on their spaceship. And the funny thing was, he said, I packed 3 days of underwear and socks, but I only packed one change of clothes because I figured once I got on their ships, they'd give me one of their jumpsuits. And I'm like, what?
But you can't, but just in case, let me take underwear and socks.
Yeah. Oh, I think he brought some toilet paper too.
Right. Hey, you know what? That thing about toilet paper, it's surprising how humans are attached to toilet paper.
I know. That's so funny. But, he sat out on the runway, and it was kind of just like sending psychic messages like, come get me.
Then at the same time, let me ask you something. I mean, because when you look at the thing about the keys, yeah, it was crazy and it's weird, but it's not really threatening.
Right.
Did
Right.
anything ever happen to him that?
Oh yeah, it
Go
was
ahead.
threatening. Yeah. So, like as time went on, these ships would show themselves more,
Okay.
and some hovered over the runway. There was one he described as like an eyeglass, a hard shell eyeglass case.
Okay.
So kind of like a hot dog bun or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it showed up twice. One time he and some of his friends, maybe his employees, were there, and it was just a light in the sky. And he said, "Oh, watch this. Let me get my laser." And he starts playing with it with the laser, and it's jumping around. He hits it with the laser, and it moves in ways that a plane can't move.
Right.
And next thing you know, it starts moving in closer. And so he's messing with it with the laser, and it moves in even closer. And now it's hovering over his head, a long way up, but it's hovering over his head. And they can see that this is a solid object.
Uh-huh.
And they're all like, wow. And he said he was standing there, and he said it felt like all of a sudden it was like somebody poured a bucket of warm water in his head, and it started filtering down through his head into his body. And he was thinking, wow, this is really kind of cool, until he started having the worst headache he'd ever had in his life. And he's now screaming in agony. So everybody takes him inside. Okay. And so he was telling one of his friends, I feel like they were trying to communicate with me. And right. And the friend says, "No, I think
I'm not at the receiving end. I'm not equipped to receive this."
Well, and one of his friends says, "No, I think they were trying to kill you." But me, the skeptic, trying to put the pieces together, I'm thinking, isn't that kind of interesting? What if another species? They talk about communicating telepathically, but what if their means of communication isn't just like what we think about, like, yes. Oh, I'm just receiving a sound like a radio into my head. What if it is a chemical cascade? Sure. And that chemical cascade causes your brain to interpret signs and symbols or some kind of communication. I mean, it's something I've never thought of, but that's one of the things that I found so interesting about his story, that who would make this up?
And I wonder how many of his friends never returned to that hangar with him.
Yeah, well, some didn't.
I know. I'm just kidding, but yeah.
Yeah, and that eyeglass case craft showed back up many months, maybe even a year or two later, when it was down to just him and one employee, and he had lost his license, and so they were just taking on small offload work from other shops. And his employee called him. They had been working, and they were ready to knock off and grill some burgers or something. And so Clay goes in the house, and the employee comes running in and says, "Clay, you got to see this." And there was this eyeglass case ship hovering. Now it wasn't like way over his head. It was between the hangar, and there was a little building they called the terminal building, which was just a box with a bathroom in it. Okay. But it was where pilots could, for a pit stop, there were tables and chairs and whatever. And this thing was hovering between these two buildings, and it was so low that Clay was able to reach out and touch the bottom of it with his hand. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, what did that feel like? And he said, it felt like wet leather. He said it felt organic, like this wasn't a piece of equipment. It was like something alive. And then the next thing that happened was it sprayed him with something, and it burned him really bad. And so his employee, he's like, Clay is like screaming and burning. This is burning. And so his employee rushes him into the hangar, where they've got an emergency shower, because if you get chemicals on you, you need to be able to shower it off. So he starts pulling his clothes off, and he goes into this shower, and the employee's taking his clothes away from him and grabs some sheets off the bed and wraps him up with those and takes him to the hospital. Well, the doctors, Clay said the doctors were arguing over what caused these burns. One doctor thought they were chemical burns. And the other doctor thought they were radiation burns. Ooh. And so I'm thinking, and it took me a while before this dawned on me, but I'm thinking, so Bob Lazar talks about this element 115 that was the fuel source for the UFOs, that he was part of back engineering, if any of that's true. Mm-hmm. So what kind of radiation does element 115 give off? Is there something that could cause radiation burns? And people who've seen UFOs have had radiation burns.
I've heard of that. I heard this other story about, what was it, the mother, the son, that they got burns.
Yeah, Cash Landrum here in Texas again, and it was a diamond-shaped craft, and I think they got burns on one side of their face or something like that. But so that's an explanation potentially for the radiation part of the burns. But what if it was a living kind of entity, and this spray had a chemical, like a skunk has it uses that spray to ward people away. What if that was some kind of a, stay away spray? I don't know.
We're giving the ETs a benefit of the doubt, because that sounds real mean. That sounds pretty mean.
Well, I don't know what to think. It seems like a reflex, but why were they hovering so close that he could
exactly? That's what I'm saying.
Touch it.
Exactly.
They obviously had the capability of zapping away before he got anywhere close to it. Exactly. So what was up with that? So that was like, there were other ships, and I can talk about that too, but the aliens that he encountered started really with, now his wife was gone, so it didn't start until his wife was not staying there anymore. Okay. And so he's the only one on the airfield at night. Okay. So he's finished his work, and he went to bed. He couldn't sleep. So it was 3:00 in the morning. He got up, and he's like, what am I going to do? It's 3:00 in the morning. So he gets on the phone and he calls his sister, who was working in China, middle of the day for her. Right. So he figured, I'll call and see what's going on and check up with her. And so he was kind of an ADHD guy, so he couldn't sit still. He's fidgety. So while he's talking on the phone, he's walking around the apartment. Okay. And just fiddling with things. And so he walks over to the door that leads from the apartment into the office, which is in the middle, and then the hangar's on the far side. So he goes over and he's just chatting with his sister, and just without even thinking, he turns the doorknob that goes into the office. And he said, as he opened the door, he saw these two little gray aliens. And he said the weirdest part was that they just moved out of the way. And he said they moved out of the way as he opened the door, but they moved like they were joined, like a gate. He said it was like a gate. And he's like, and all of this happened in just a few seconds. But so he sees the two little gray aliens, and they move out of the way. And then he looks over to his right, and he sees this tall guy. And Clay was tall. Clay was like 6'4". Okay. And this thing was at least as tall as he was. And it was, he said that it was like naked, but there were no features on his body. Okay. So he said it was like a Ken doll. So no features on the body. And but the thing had a big head. So the alien, the little grays, their heads they're not huge, but they were bigger than normal, and the eyes were bigger than normal.
Yeah, in proportion to the body.
Yeah, so it wasn't like an extreme, like big alien head on the little guys, or giant eyes, but they were like doe eyes. They were big eyes on the grays. Uh-huh. Now this guy had big bulging eyes, and the lid's closed top and bottom. And he said the head in the back head bulges. So kind of like, I don't know, where his brain bulged out or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he said he knew right away that guy was the bodyguard for the two little guys.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Not the other way around. Okay.
And so he said, all this happened just in a few seconds. And he said, when I saw the guy on my right, the big guy, and he took a step forward, and in some tellings, he said he lurched forward. Even if he just took a step forward, to me, if I saw something like that, I'd be like, this is a threatening move. I'm out of here. And so he backed out, closed the door, dropped the phone. And he said, I wouldn't open that door until daylight.
Of course not.
So when I talked to his sister, just to confirm, do you remember this call? And she said, yeah. But he said, he told me he just dropped the phone. He said, gotta go. And hung up.
Exactly. Like, I'm not even going to bother to tell you why I got to hang up.
What? Yeah. So that was kind of his first really big alien visitation showing up there. And so now he knows they can get into his home.
Yes.
Even when the doors are locked. And I mean, after this, he went to great lengths he put shutters, wooden shutters over the windows. He put bolts in the he put a eye bolt in the floor in concrete, and an eye bolt on the steel door that went into the hangar from the office.
He was wigged out.
And he put a towing strap between the two bolts at night so he could strap that door shut with him inside. So God help him, he had to get out at night. But they still managed to get through. So now he knows that there are creatures. He doesn't know if they're dangerous.
Right.
But they can come and go. They can invade my home. I have no control. So then some time passed. And he and his secretary were in the hangar. And it was right after hours. Everybody was gone home. It was like January. It was cold. And they were wrapping up for the night, and the secretary heard something in the hangar, and so she goes out and she says, Clay, there's a kid in the hangar. There's a little kid in the hangar. And they're both thinking, how in the world would a child, I mean, again, this is out in the middle of nowhere.
Right. How did the little kid get out here?
How did a little kid get out here in January? It's freezing. Where are your parents, kind of thing. So the secretary is, walking through the hangar, and she's, sweet talking. Come on, honey, it's okay. Come see me. Where's your parents? What, just kind of doing what you would normally do if you saw a child in your office that shouldn't be there. And so she's trying to draw it out. Well, Clay was in the hangar farther over at his workshop, at his workstation. And by this time he was carrying a gun on him. He had a gun at his workstation.
Wow. Okay.
He was scared to death.
Okay.
And so he comes out and he starts, he's got the gun on his hip, but obviously if it's a little kid, he's not going to use it. He's not going to draw the gun. So he's unarmed. He's basically disarmed. He's not concerned. He thinks he's looking for a little kid. And this figure is darting behind these metal tanks that have these volatile gases in them. So he can't really get a good bead on this little kid.
Right.
And when he finally does, and it moves away from these bottles of gas, he sees that it's not a kid, it's an alien. So he yells to his secretary, get out. And the next thing you know, he's pulling his gun, aiming at this alien, and out of the alien's, he said it was a breastplate or something. I don't know if he saw a breastplate or if it just emanated out of this being's chest, but there was like a 4-foot diameter blue, like a laser beam. And it shot through the hangar, and it like disintegrated everything in its path, including it shot through some scaffolding that was up against a plane. It shot through part of the plane that was in for repairs, and it shot a hole through the outside of the hangar. Now, this is corrugated steel, and it shot a hole through that. And he's like, what the heck is this? And so I don't know what happened to the alien then. I don't know if the alien ran away or it beamed up or disappeared. But now Clay is terrified that something happened to his secretary.
Sure.
So he's outside looking for her, thinking, did this alien kill her or take her or something? And he's looking around. He finally finds her in this little terminal building next door. And she was hiding out in the bathroom.
I was going to say, she probably ducked. She probably was like, I'm out. Oh,
she was terrified. She was on the floor, just huddled up and, just scared to death. She had locked the door to the bathroom, and they never keep it locked. And so, he had to kind of talk her down before he could get her to come out. But she was fine. And that was the end of that particular episode until, and I think it was only maybe a week or two later. It must have been maybe a month later, because the next time was on Valentine's Day.
Okay.
And it was during the day now. Okay. And his only employee now, who was pretty much just staying because they were friends and they were getting little bits of jobs. Right. He went into town to get his wife something for Valentine's Day. So Clay's now at the hangar daytime by himself. Okay. And another little gray shows up. And Clay didn't ask questions. He just shot it.
Okay.
So by this,
that alien he's talking
about. So by this time, he's not giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Right. Forget. I'm not going to let you pull the blue light on me.
Well, and you kind of wonder, was this a demonstration of their power, the blue light, the blue energy beam, right? Or was the alien really trying to kill him? If he was, he didn't do a very good job, because he clearly could have vaporized Clay too.
Right. And it's like, I don't know. See, and that's the thing. You get these mixed messages. Like,
yeah. So what was that all about? So
are you trying to get close to me to say hi, or are you getting close enough to me to do something to me?
Yeah. And so, by this time when the next one came, and he just shot, it was instinctive. And he said, there this thing is. And I'm like, what do I do with it? I've got a dead alien in my hangar. And so he puts it in a double bag, black trash bag, doubles it up, and then he kind of peels it back and he takes a picture with his phone. But his phone was one of those flip phones, and if you remember, they had like the screen on it was the size of a postage stamp.
Small. Yes.
So he got two pictures of this thing in the trash bag, and then he bagged it up, and he's like, what am I going to do with this? He said, if you had told me 2 years ago that I'd have an alien in my hangar, and I wouldn't just put it in my truck and go to every media,
sure,
CNN and the Oprah show and everything, I splash everywhere, I've got this dead alien.
Yeah.
I would have said you were lying. And he said, but now I had this thing, and I had these different feelings about it. And I didn't find out how he really felt about it until many years later when I was interviewing him, and he kept avoiding the subject. I kept asking him more about that one that he killed, and he would just kind of divert. Oh, I'll write it down, or I wrote that in a journal somewhere, I'll find it for you. Or he didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And what I found out later was, he said, I said, why won't you talk about this? I said, if we're going to tell your story, if my brother's going to tell your story,
right,
you need to be prepared to tell it all. This is the piece they really want to hear about.
Of course.
You killed an alien. And he said, I'm afraid they're going to think I'm some kind of animal.
You know,
he said, he said, I feel like a murderer. And I said, Clay, if a bear came into your hangar, you would have shot it. And he said, I'm not sure. So right there, I knew what kind of guy he was. He would have given a bear the benefit of the doubt. So the fact that he had a conscience, in other words. Exactly. So that to me was, kind of pulled on my heartstrings, because I realized how much he really, really wanted to communicate with these beings. He wanted to know them. He wanted to go for a ride on their ship, and so this really was profound to me. The fact that he felt like a murderer, and he felt like people would think awful of him. They would think he was
if he had killed a human being.
Yeah. And so so going back, he wrapped the thing up, he put it in a box, and he took it up to his cousin's restaurant. His cousin had a restaurant with a walk-in freezer.
Oh my God.
And he, because he needed time. He needed time to think.
No, I can see. Can you imagine? You come up to your cousin, hey,
but
that's something.
But he told his cousin he had a feral pig. He had shot a feral pig.
That's what he said it was.
So in Texas, feral pigs are everywhere.
Yeah, we got them out here too. Yeah. Okay,
yeah. So, if somebody wants to shoot one, that's great. So, but he said, he told his cousin, well, I need to just keep it frozen for a while until I figure out what to do with it. So, and it occurred to me, what if his cousin opened, or what if one of the employees opened it up?
It's like, oh yeah, pig, let me take a look at it.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And so, he waited for a while, and then he finally said, I have to do right by this creature. And I feel so bad. So he goes back, gets it out of the freezer, and he takes it back. And somewhere not too far from the airport, he digs a hole. Oh, he puts it in a box.
Okay.
And he digs a hole, and he wraps it in a blue sheet. He thought blue was for the sky. This is a sky creature. Let's do it nicely. And he puts it in there, and he covers it up, and he said some words that he thought sounded kind of religious, like you would say over a burial. And throughout all of this 3.25 years, he had started out, he said, when this all started, I was about as religious as a hog. And throughout this experience, he started to reconnect with his Catholic upbringing.
Okay.
So he started to become more spiritual, more connected to his religion, reading the Bible, watching the church channel, things like that. So by the time he's burying this thing, he's feeling like, I don't know if this is God's creature. It must be.
Exactly.
But let's bring God into this thing and do right by it. So that's how we ended up with a buried alien.
Which, from what you're describing, where he buried it was out like in the middle of a field or something? Or?
Well, it was in some woods, but the woods aren't there anymore. So this has been the challenge for the team that I now have, looking for that alien body. So in the process of all of this story, my brother was supposed to come down to Texas to interview Clay and dig up the body. And before he was able to come down to Texas, he had a heart attack in his sleep, and he died.
Wow.
So then, Clay and I were both kind of, now what do we do? Because Jimmy was the engine for all of this. Jimmy was going to tell Clay's story. He was going to get it on TV.
But you had already gone in there and done like the verified everything.
Right. And I had done some interviews with him, and thank God I filmed the interviews with him, because now that's all that's left. So about a year later, and Clay and I stayed in touch, but we're like, what do we do now? There's no TV show. I can't take over the TV show. I don't know anything about that business.
Okay.
And so we stayed in touch, and he continued telling me his stories. But by then he was living in that apartment at his mom and dad's house. And he said, nothing's happening. And that was another curious thing. If he was making stuff up,
right,
why wouldn't he still be making stuff up when he was living with his mom and stepdad?
So once he moved away, that was it?
That was it. Yeah. So then, we stayed in touch. We talked probably a couple of times a week, either on the phone or by email, sometimes more than that. And he was kind of getting into conspiracies and things like that. I think his experiences opened his mind. So he was reading a lot. He was watching things on TV a lot. So he was, this seems to be a common phenomenon. It's like once something impossible.
What else out there is
right? When something impossible happens,
yes,
it opens your mind and you start thinking everything's possible. And it takes a while for you to kind of bring it back, put some guardrails around that. Not everything is possible, kind of thing. So anyway, I forget where I was going with that. Help me, Marlene.
Well, let me ask you. No, so anyway, you're telling me basically that. So in other words, the visitations and everything, it was almost, for lack of a better word, it was tied to that area.
It seems to be, yes. And even to this day, there are people reporting ships and spheres and objects in that same area, only wider than just around the airport.
Is that the same? Is the hangar still out there, or is it a field, or what's?
No, the hangar's still there. They're building out that airport, so there's a lot more buildings out there now, so there's more activity.
Okay.
And I don't know. So where I was going with that was that so he had he had moved out to his folks' house, and nothing was really happening, and here he's reading and watching all this stuff. So I hadn't been able to there you go. I hadn't been able to really do anything to recognize my brother. My sister-in-law and my niece had just been paralyzed by his loss.
Okay.
And so I put together this memorial video, which is on the experiencers.com website.
Okay.
And so I sent it out to everybody. I sent it out to anybody I knew of that Jimmy had been connected to on Facebook. I sent it out to everybody I knew that was part of his team, his investigative team, his experiencers. And I sent an email to Clay with the link to this video. And I didn't hear back from him. And I knew that he and Jimmy, my brother, had gotten very close through the time they were talking and planning on the interview and all that. Mm-hmm. And so I knew Clay would have said something if he had seen the video. So I got worried. And so I contacted his sister and I said, I haven't heard from him in a while. Is he okay? And she said, no. He's in the hospital. He's been in the hospital for a month. He has multiple organ failure.
What? And
flesh-eating bacteria. And they've had to strip away parts of his skin trying to get rid of that flesh-eating bacteria. And she said, if he survives, he's going to need massive skin grafts. But he didn't survive. And the next day she emailed me and said, he died. So now it's just me.
Let me ask you, how long was this after your brother's death?
It was just like a year and a month after Jimmy died.
Very close together.
Yes. But now if you read the book, you understand why he declined so much, including the damage that his ex-wife did to him. Mm-hmm. And then, all these illnesses, and he was taking drugs, and, and that leads me to another piece, which relates to the search for the body.
Okay.
He had told me when I was saying, well, when we go looking for it, will we be able to find it with a metal detector? And he's, yeah, it's in a box. But then I had been interviewing him, and I was changing out the memory cards. And so
Right.
my husband and Clay went for a walk on the runway. Well, when my husband came back, he said, while they were walking, he was asking Clay about what it was buried in and all that. And then Clay says, but I might have booby trapped it.
Oh my God.
And my husband's going, okay, if
Well,
you did, what would you have used? And he said, oh, hand grenades.
oh,
Now, flashback to the fact that I said he had a license to manufacture and repair weapons.
right. So that was not like an empty kind of threat kind of.
He had hand grenades. Now, we've got a guy on our team who is our bomb detector guy from the military. But in looking for this thing, we not only have to find the location. Once we find what we think is the location, we need to figure out how to get this thing out of the ground safely if there's a hand grenade or...
Let me ask you, did he tell your husband why he would have booby trapped it?
No, he did not. And, that's one of the puzzles that's still stuck in my head.
Right. To me, it's like, and or let's go down. I mean, I wouldn't want to test a theory, but that he said it just to say it because he still felt guilty about it. He says, "What if they go and look for this?"
And that's one very reasonable argument, that he might feel like, I don't want it. I don't want it dug up. I don't want it paraded around like I thought I would do.
And I'm going to be the guy that shot the alien. Right.
Yeah. So it could be that was it. But then again, he was talking with my brother and planning on coming, with Jimmy coming down with a film crew, and they were going to dig it up. So, I don't know if he had a plan for how he was going to handle. I mean, he obviously would know where the hand grenade or hand grenades were. And our bomb guy was, our bomb guy is saying, okay, he dealt with all kinds of things in the Middle East and IEDs and everything. He said, it's always under the thing you want. So when you take the thing you want, boom, it's going to blow up on you.
Right. Okay.
So it's either under the body, inside the box, or it's under the box. So part of our plan has to be...
In other words, I want to blow up whatever it is. You think you're going to get it if you find it? Well, guess what?
Right. Now, our bomb tech, it's like, once we find the location, and we've got a guy who has a ground penetrating radar and high powered magnetometers and all kinds of high tech. So, theoretically we'll be able to see, okay, here's a patch of ground with a box in it,
Okay.
Once we do that, now we turn it over to the bomb guy to decide how to get it out, hopefully without blowing, without harming anybody, first of all.
Sure, of course.
And then without destroying the evidence.
Whatever's in there.
Right. So that's part of our trick.
Let me tell you, that's...
Yeah.
He sounds like a really intelligent guy, but at the same time, he seems like very torn about what was going on with him.
Well, and he was kind of a MacGyver type too.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying.
It was like he found a dish antenna that somebody threw away, and he took it and was trying to make a parabolic microphone. Actually, he did make a parabolic microphone. He was thinking, maybe if I point this toward the ships, I might be able to hear something. I don't think he ever did, but he was always coming up with these clever things, like remember the story I told you about the headache beam that felt the ship that hovered over him?
Download,
it felt like the warm water going through him. He wanted to see that thing again, so he built this little booth, a little box on casters, and he had gotten see-through kind of two-way glass from the local movie theater. They were remodeling the local movie theater, and they were throwing stuff out and or giving stuff away or selling it. And he got these sheets of two-way glass, and so he made the panels on this out of that so that he could be in the booth and shoot the laser at the ships to get them to come in, but theoretically their headache beam wouldn't be able to get through it. Now,
right.
Does that work? He doesn't know what technology it is, so we don't know. But he was always trying to figure out something.
No, you could tell he sounds like a really one of these people that gets it, like that engineer type of mind.
Yeah, but the problem was he was a little bit reckless. So he was like a little kid in a candy shop, and so he would do things and not really like putting a hand grenade under the buried alien, not thinking it through here.
It's priceless, I'm telling you. It's like,
so yeah, I mean, and it's funny how the story, there's so much, people think, oh, it's a scary story, it's a scary book, it's scary all the way through his experiences, but there's a lot of humor in it. There was a lot of fun in it. Like one night he and his buddy were going to try to pin down the runway lights that were running around.
Okay.
And so they tried a bunch of different costumes, disguises. He had, while he was laid up in a wheelchair from when his wife dragged him by his hand on the truck, he was making a ghillie suit. Now, I don't know if everybody knows what that is, but it's just kind of a net suit, but you weave yarn through it that's different colors of brown and green.
Like a camo kind of.
It's a camo thing, yeah. And so you look like this just big shaggy monster.
Right.
But you blend in. So you have to make your own because you want to weave the colors that are in your environment into this suit. So while he was laid up, he was weaving or crocheting or something. I don't know, this ghillie suit to go.
I laugh because I'm thinking, here's this guy.
I know. And so, he has this done. And of course it's hot in Texas. So this one night they're out there and they're going to try all these different costumes. So he tries the ghillie suit and he's like, oh my God, this stinks, first of all, and it's hot. And so, but he still couldn't sneak up on the runway light. By the time he would see the runway light moving around, but by the time he got close to it, it would be back down in the concrete where it always was. So then he tried a wetsuit for diving. And that was even hotter than the ghillie suit.
That neoprene, God, yes.
Yeah. And they tried a couple other things, but the last thing they did, they had found a 2-man cow suit in the attic.
Oh my God, you're kidding.
His buddy's parents' house. And the two of them, I swear to God.
Can you imagine? It's like,
now they had a few brews.
I bet.
And so the two of them are in this cow suit trying to sneak up on the runway lights. And, this is like, who would think of this?
Let me tell you something. It's like, thank God it's only us out here, right? Nobody knows about this.
Right. Yeah.
Let me ask you something. Did you ever have an opportunity to speak to his wife, to his ex-wife?
No. But I had thought that she was probably dead because the last he had heard while I was interviewing him before he had passed away, he was saying that he had heard that she had had a bad stroke and was hospitalized. Okay. But now time passed after he was gone, and now I wrote the book. I formed this team, and one of our guys on the team was a private investigator, and it seemed like he may have tracked down the ex-wife.
Okay.
And that he said it looks like she's still working in a hospital, but not as a nurse. So presumably she lost her nursing license, but I don't know who would want her working in their hospital, but
can you imagine?
Maybe as an aide, or I don't know what, but so we have not contacted her. I'm not sure that we've got a real solid address for her or contact number. But yeah, we're trying to
It's
we're
almost
trying
like you
to
want to hear her version
yeah
of
yeah
if she recalls it, or just to see what she would say, or if
right
she'll even talk to you, because maybe she'll be like, "No, I don't want to talk about that."
right. And from what his mom says, she seemed to be a pathological liar.
Oh wow.
So I don't know if she always was,
Mm-hmm.
or if that came with the darkness
Of whatever
at the
happened.
airport.
Mm-hmm. Let
I
me ask
don't
you,
know.
were any of these other guys that were working with him originally, did anything happen to any of them?
Some of them supposedly witnessed some of the stuff that happened out there. Some of them saw ships. Now
Okay.
we're still trying to track down some of the witnesses. I last year found one of the guys,
Okay.
and he didn't see any of the aliens or ships, but he did see some of the strange stuff. He saw pictures that were morphing from what they were into something else. Like Clay had pictures of U.S. like military ships that he had mounted on the wall, and he said that they would morph into like sexy lady pictures kind of thing.
Alrighty then. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a big morph, let me tell you.
It's like, okay, you'd really have to cross your eyes to make a naked lady out of a battleship or something.
Right, exactly.
But this guy saw that. He saw some of the other, I don't know if he saw, that Clay saw a ghost one night.
Okay. What was it? What was it? Somebody he knew,
it was,
or what?
No. It was like a little old man, kind of hunched over, but it was like all in shadow.
Okay.
It wasn't, you couldn't tell, like, did it have a yellow shirt and brown pants or something, but exactly. It was just it was a shadow man.
Right.
But it was a man. And it was, I don't know, maybe 5 feet tall. And he said it crossed the floor beyond the foot of his bed, and it came out of one wall and crossed in front of the bed, and it stopped and tipped his hat. And that was when his wife was still there, but she was sleeping. He said the guy walked across, tipped his hat, like as if he was tipping his hat toward the wife, and then walked over and went through the wall. And that was it.
Wow.
So now this guy that I caught up with, I interviewed him, and he was convinced that all of the phenomena was demons, was demonic, that it was some kind of manifestation of demonic influence, demonic energy or something. And Clay did see what he thought was a demon or a devil coming out of the ground one night. He had seen a portal open up, and it was open for about an hour, and it was just this bright light. And he said it was like pulling a curtain or a sliding door, and the light shone through, and creatures came out, UFOs came out, all kinds of stuff came out. And then after about an hour, they all went back in. At least he thought they all went back in. He realized after it happened, he said, I should have written down what came out to make sure everything went back in.
Yeah, really. But yeah, I can tell. I would probably be like, huh?
So he that ended, and he had a camera. And so when that stopped, he went out to get the camera, and he said it looked like a devil. It was like all red, almost like it was covered with blood, but it was slick, wet, red. And it was like pushing itself up out of the ground. Like it had its hands on the ground. Like I can't describe it any better than that, but it was in a hole, and it was pushing itself up
like
out of the ground.
And
he said, I grabbed the camera, I ran inside the house, inside, and that was that. So this guy that I interviewed, he seemed to think that all of the phenomena was just different manifestations of this demonic energy. So the aliens.
What did he think was the origins? Why would he think it was demonic versus aliens, for example?
I don't know. You know,
Or was it just
he was
his belief system?
he
Or
was very religious.
okay.
So I'm guessing that's where it came from. And at
Sure.
one point, you know, like I said, Clay more and more returned to his religious roots.
Right. Okay.
And at one point, he had a priest come out and bless the place, and he
Okay.
said he had silver crucifixes over every opening, every doorway, every window,
Okay.
and all that. And he said it helped for a little while,
Mm-hmm.
and then the stuff started up again. So, you know, if you ask me, that could be true. I don't know. You know, I just don't know.
How long had that? And I know you might not know what the history of that land is, or how long that hangar had been out there.
We actually tried to find out the history of the land, and we're still working on it.
Okay.
Because I'd like to know if there's, like, you know, Native American
Or anything.
connections.
Anything could have happened out there.
Yeah, and before the airport was there, so we're still working on that.
Yeah.
But I don't know the history before that.
Yeah, let me tell you something. Everybody, though, sometimes they would. It could be an unofficial grave. Just me making unofficial graveyard. If there was ever any contagion, sometimes they'll make mass pits because they get scared. If maybe there was like a contagion in the town.
True, that's right.
And
you're right.
They'll dump putties. They don't like to do it, but if everybody's sick, they'll just like put them out there.
Yeah, that's true, and they wouldn't advertise it.
And they would never advertise it
because they don't want you going there and possibly
right.
getting
It's just
that.
like, hey, we had to do what we had to do. Everybody was sick.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I remember reading like where during the the 1800s when they would have these fever epidemics, like in all these cities, especially in the South, with the hot summers, that they said that between the people that were getting sick. They're saying normally the workers that would show up to handle the dead, whether it was the doctors or the coroners, or the people that would take the bodies for burial. He says once these fevers started going around, either people were sick or those personnel would stay home to take care of their families who were sick, or the fear of contagion. So they were saying that sometimes they would get overwhelmed with all these bodies. That sometimes the expediency was open a pit.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point.
And they, like you said, nobody. It's like, sorry, we don't want to talk about that. And the people that know about it die. Like it happened so many years before.
Right. Yeah, and it might be hard to find somebody who either was alive back then or heard stories from their parents or their previous generations.
Sure.
Interestingly enough, we had a group of remote viewers viewing the area. And I don't know if you know how that works, but you don't tell them where they're looking.
Right. They're just whatever.
They have
and you don't give any hints or anything.
They have no idea in the world where you're having them look. You just give them a code number that represents your case. Right. And they start viewing and seeing what they pick up. And because we were trying to pinpoint the location, because as I was telling you earlier, the markers that used to be there are gone. So now we got nothing. So we're going to use a psychic. We're using the remote viewers. But interestingly enough, one of the remote viewers said that there was a woman buried out there. Totally different, separate from this.
Okay.
And she described her as what I picture was a 1950s or 60s I Love Lucy time period where she said she had she's carrying a she's like polka dot dress, carrying a handbag that looks like an envelope, and that she's buried out there. And so as I questioned her, so the first time around, they just describe what they see. They're not supposed to interpret at all, because that goes against their thing. Because once they get their interpretations involved, it can muddy the waters. They might be describing exactly what you need them to describe, but if they start trying to say, okay, these wiggly lines are a mountain and it's something totally different, then they're going to mess you up. So they're not supposed to interpret anything. So she's just telling this story. And, I'm thinking, what if there is somebody else out there? And,
Sure.
and so the remote viewer said that this woman, so I'm asking questions the second time around when now it's okay to ask questions. And I said, so was she murdered? And the remote viewer said, yes, she was murdered, but it wasn't traumatic because she died instantly. So it's not like, somebody was kidnapped and tortured and there was this trauma all going on for this long period of time. It was just like she was alive and then she was dead. And the fact that she was murdered sounds traumatic, but if she didn't realize she was murdered, she was just alive and then dead. It wasn't traumatic for her. So, it was an interesting concept that I hadn't even thought about.
Let me tell you something. God knows there's a lot of people that especially back then, like, no victim, no crime, where people disappeared unless there was any type of, like splatters and they would say, okay, missing persons report. And that was it. Like let's say what you were saying, let's say in the 1950s where they couldn't ping your phone and there was no credit card to see is anybody using your money. And if somebody up and disappeared, let's go with the story that it was a boyfriend or a husband. Yeah. They could say, nah, she left me. Or no, hey, she was out of here. She didn't want anything. They could suspect them. Yeah. But without a body, good luck. And if he buried her, like you said, out in the middle of nowhere, suddenly, in other words, like. Yeah.
And the remote viewer said that she wants to be found. So when we're out, she said, while we're out there looking for the alien body, this other lady is going to try to help us find her. So that would be great. So that her body can be found.
Let me tell you something. That would be a great book. I'm telling you right now.
I know. I mean, it's just
you find the ET with the help of a ghost.
Right. I love Lucy and the alien.
Yes. I'm telling you.
Who can make this stuff
having no luck searching and finding the ET with a possible explosive under him.
Well, and now the other piece of that is the more conservative members of our team are saying, what if there's a human body? What if we dig up this box and there's a human body?
You know that? I was thinking about that. I was like, what if you guys find this when all is said and done?
Yeah. And then,
animal
now, if it's an animal, that's fine. But if it's a human body, now we're like, oh crap, we knew there was something out here. First of all, we knew there was something out here buried. Right. Second, we knew it was potentially booby trapped and we didn't tell the authorities. Oh no. Are we going to be in huge trouble?
Okay, but think about it. Let's go with the theory that you guys find it and it's an animal, whatever animal, a bear, a dog, a hog.
Squirrel, an armadillo.
Whatever.
We got armadillos in Texas.
Let's go with a hog. Let's say he killed a hog.
Right.
Okay, and he goes through this thing of putting it with his, and he goes, you think about it and it's like, okay, was this guy really going crazy? Or what happened to him? Or was it that he had a hallucination where it was basically an animal and he saw, because maybe he was so weirded out that he actually thought he saw. But then again, you're thinking, okay, so if he thought it was an alien, but when he looks closer, goes, oh my God, I just shot a hog. Okay, well, too bad, throw the hog away or whatever.
Right.
The fact that he would have taken the trouble to bury it, it's like, what happened? Where did he is,
And at the end of the book,
okay,
I have a whole chapter where I do that kind of thinking.
Right.
Was he making stuff up?
Right.
Well, so I'm answering myself. I'm asking the questions and then I'm answering them myself. So was he making stuff up? Well, if he was, why? He was not seeking attention. He wasn't seeking notoriety. He was seeking researchers. He tried to contact people who could explain and help him deal with this
Yes.
stuff going on. He wasn't trying to make himself famous. He wasn't going around to MUFON meetings and talking about it.
To be honest with you, even if let's say I'm gonna go with a theory that he actually had shot an alien, you would think he'd be like, "Holy crap, that's it! I'm gonna be the most famous man
Right.
on earth."
And that was his first thought. If you had told me I would not do that, yeah, I would have said you were crazy, because that is absolutely what he thought he would have done.
Mm-hmm.
He would have bragged about it everywhere, taken it on the road,
sure,
on the news. He would have been the most famous guy in the world.
Yes, yeah,
he didn't do that. So, then I asked myself, well, okay, was he hallucinating? And that goes back to, what could have caused him to hallucinate? Well, he was taking drugs for pain and different illnesses. But I looked up the drugs and they don't cause hallucinations.
Right.
We talked about, could there have been some gas or something in the water? Well, that wouldn't have been temporary. That would have run out. It wouldn't have continued. And it would have, so if he was embellishing things, yes, I think he did embellish things. I think he misinterpreted some things.
Right.
This kind of goes back to the once your mind's open to extraordinary things, it's kind of hard to put guardrails around it again.
Sure.
So, I think he misunderstood some things. Like the first time I met him, we couldn't go out to the airport because it was raining. So we interviewed him in the hotel room, and so he had both of his laptops there, and I'd ask him a question, and he'd immediately go to one of the laptops. So I'll show you this picture. I'll show you that picture. Well, one of the pictures he showed me was something he had sent me before. And it was something people call rods or skyfish.
Yes, I know what those are.
Yeah, I figured your audience probably knows what they were. Yes. So it just looks like a flying snake with a bunch of wings on it. And some people think they're interdimensional creatures. Well,
yes.
I told him I had seen this really great National Geographic documentary or Science Channel or one of those where they had two cameras side by side. One was a normal film camera, and the other one was a high-speed film camera. And they had a digital timer in the middle. It's in the dark. It's at night. But then they had these spotlights so that it was going to show the bugs. So in the regular camera, all the bugs showed up as these skyfish or the rods, the long snaky things with a bunch of wings. And I said, that's just because that camera shutter speed isn't fast enough to freeze the wings in flight. The other high-speed camera showed that it was just a bunch of moths or whatever flying bugs. He was. He kind of leaned back in the chair, and he said, "That's not what I saw." And so I explained to him. I said, "I believe you've had some really extraordinary experiences, and I want the world to know that. I want them to hear your stories. But there are some other things that can be explained away, and we don't want to do a documentary about you or a TV show about you, and we show this and people go, oh, that's just bugs." And then they disregard everything you're telling you.
They dismantle your story.
I said, it's really important for us to debunk the things that can be easily debunked ourselves. And so he kind of thought about that and kind of came out of his funk a little bit. Well, then we were there for 2 days. On the third day, when we got home, he sent me a picture. He said, I was leaving the airport. It was raining. He had taken a picture of what he said was a floating baboon face. And my brother thought it looked like a baboon face too. And he swore up and down, it's this free floating baboon face. He said, I debunked the baboon face. He said, I was going home after you guys left. It was raining. I had my camera, my dash cam, and I was leaving the airport and approaching the backside of a stop sign.
Okay.
And he said, there was rain on my windshield. There was rain in between. My lights were on, and it hit the back of that stop sign, the silvery part of it, and it created these patterns, and it looked like the baboon face.
Okay.
And he said, so I debunked that. And he was so proud of himself because he appreciated the fact that we were trying to say, we want your story to be clean so that people really get it, that they are 100% with you. They're not distracted by these other things that are easily debunked, like camera.
Did his mom believe him?
She did.
Okay.
She knew some of the things were probably caused by his illness, his drugs, the drugs he was taking. For he had a heart condition. He had that clot in his lung. He had damage from what his wife did to him.
Yeah.
These weren't recreational drugs. They were but they. So she knew some of that, but after she saw that runway light flipping around in the air, she just kind of kicked back and said, any of it could be true.
Okay. And the reason why I ask is usually mothers at the end of the day know their kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, she's probably where I am, that of course I didn't see anything there, but I'm open-minded, and I think he saw some really unusual, extraordinary things, experienced some extraordinary things, and I think he misinterpreted some other things.
Sure.
So I think it's a mixed bag, but the things that were real, and it's so interesting. In one of the videos the interviews that I did of him, I asked him, I said, overall, would you say this was a positive or a negative experience? And he's sitting there in a lawn chair with the runway behind him, and he says, yeah, I think it was a negative experience, but it was, and then his whole face changed. His eyes start looking up to the sky, and he said, but it was amazing to look up the sky every night. It was like being on the Sci-Fi Channel.
Right.
And so you could see the wonder in him, that even though he was saying it was an overall negative experience, yes, it ultimately killed him. It damaged his body. It ruined his business.
Yeah, it was like what I would like it to be versus what it was.
Yeah, but I mean, the wonder in his eyes and his expression was
he wanted it to be like you said. I want to have contact with these ETs and discover what they know, and the perfect setting, and it turns out like it's one of those things you can't fake that. I mean, he just transitioned from saying it was overall a negative experience, and boom, but it was amazing. And that was so real. Okay.
And so I don't know what to do with this. I just don't know what to do with all of this.
That's the thing, that what would put it all to rest, if you find that ET body.
Yep.
Or whatever, or you find anything, whatever.
Well, and the thing is, we've thought about, would it decompose? If it decomposed, what would it decompose into? Would there be bones?
Let me ask you, did he leave it? Did he ever tell you if he left it inside the plastic bag, or he just put it in a box?
He did not. I'm guessing he left it inside the bag.
Right. I'm thinking that hopefully if it's inside a plastic bag, decomposition,
that it'd be contained. Yeah. Well, and then we got an alien body here. All bets are off. So we're saying, what if they beamed the body up? Could be nothing in there. If it decomposed. Now, we've got a guy on our team we're calling our exobiologist.
Okay.
There are no real exobiologists because nobody as far as we know publicly, has
Yes.
has examined an alien body. But he's a biophysicist.
Okay.
So he is our exobiologist, and he's saying even if there's nothing in the box, we're going to take samples. We're going to
Sure.
swab it. He's going to analyze it in the lab.
Sure.
We don't know what kind of residue might be left.
You think something's got to be left there.
And what if these things were not organic?
Yeah.
So that's a whole other thing. Were they androids? Were they
A biomechanical
something? What would we find in there? Would we find like metals and
Yes.
No telling.
Wow. So when are you going back out there to look for this?
Well, the plan is that we're going to go back this spring.
Okay.
And we'll get our guy down from Colorado who has he and his son who have all the high tech.
Okay.
And the problem is that the area where the burial has changed. So now it's covered in thick undergrowth. So really thick. And in Texas, we've got these, the stuff that grows. It's really thick. You can't really get to the ground.
Scrubby, like as far as to roll something, even one of those.
But it's not even the kind of thing you can't even get through it. You can't we can't get the ground penetrating radar onto the ground because these things are in the way.
Yeah.
So that's the next challenge, is to see if we can get permission to clear the ground, but we don't even, first we have to figure out where we need to go. So one of the things we're going to try is LiDAR from the air, from a drone, to see if we can see some landmarks that supposedly are in the area where it was buried. We found.
And let me ask you, he did never say like he left any type of marker. He just knew where it was.
He left a marker, but the marker is gone.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. We have nothing to tell us, we're in the right area.
Right. Like we're going to put a drone up and maybe we'll fly over, maybe we'll see something or.
Yeah. I mean, our best bet is to get ground penetrating radar or magnetometer on the ground.
Did he ever tell you how far down he dug?
No, but my guess is he was so weak by the time he buried it that he would not have dug very deep.
That deep. Okay, good.
That's my thinking. Now I could be wrong, but that's
sure. But that makes sense,
logic.
though. That makes sense. Like he probably only dug as far as he needed to.
Yeah, exactly, to keep predators from getting at it.
Sure.
So yeah, it's just.
Wow. Okay. Now it's like the cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Well,
I know.
You got to keep me abreast of this, Pat.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
For my podcast listeners, what's your website where they can find you at and follow up on this?
It's experiencers.com. So just experiencers.com.
Okay.
And that's got, it's got the memorial to Jimmy, so to my brother, and that has that clicking noise.
Here, let me see if I can. Tell me if this is. Hold on a minute before I. Let me. Hold on a minute. If I can. Share screen. Let's see.
And I'll be updating that website to put the new team on there.
Is this it?
That is the tribute. And I think if you scroll maybe 2/3 of the way through.
Okay.
For anybody who knew my brother Jim.
Okay, hold on. Let me know. This I'm showing it's 15 minutes. You want to say what at the 10-minute mark?
Yeah, let's say 10.
Okay.
Want to get to the UFO stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, we're getting close. Yeah, should be getting close. There we go.
Okay, you got
right there.
All right, here we go.
Okay, that's
crisscrossing the country following these alien clues. each one of these team members was selected because they have some special gift or skill that was developed as a result of their own alien encounters and makes them best suited for these investigations.
Then on the 6th picture that I took, I started feeling sick, and that's when my phone completely died. It didn't drain, it just died. So I promptly left, and about 2 miles down the road, I was heading towards my mother's house, my phone automatically just came on. It never skipped a beat, and I had 3/4 of the battery showing.
On the road, investigating alien encounters can be the most exciting journey a human being can take.
You see we have some imagery here.
People hiking up there, who knows?
Clandestine organization.
Exactly.
Living inside the mountain, perhaps keeping an eye on us.
Some of the feelings she was having.
That's where we're at.
Did I hear a clicking sound?
Oh, Superstition Mountain.
Actually, Cynthia and I both heard some clicking sounds.
But I think there's another one.
Yeah, there is.
You see that?
Yeah, there is. There's another one.
You actually dug an implant, an alien implant, out of your arm, right?
Yeah. Here it is, right here. Check it out.
Oh.
90% of the ships are grays.
They told me I was a hybrid from a government experiment.
We hear it ringing at night by itself.
I'm strapped to a table being pushed down a hall by 4 gray aliens.
From truck stops and IHOPs to mountaintop observatories, almost everyone we meet along the way has some story of UFOs or alien encounters. My name is Jim O'Connell, and I'm the founder and director of the Experiencers Alien Encounter Investigations.
So that's it.
That's it? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the end of the sizzle reel. But you heard the clicking sound.
Yes, yes, I did. Wow.
And it's not like any other kind of interference I've ever heard before.
Okay. Yes, that's very weird.
I don't know what that was, but interesting that Clay's mom had heard that too.
I know. I mean, these are two totally separate, isolated moments.
Yeah.
That she would describe something that's very interesting. Like,
yeah,
we're thinking that, yeah, it would be interesting. They don't speak languages, or they're not that telepathy, but they communicate by clicks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why not?
Or
again, it's like, or who knows? I mean, because we always make up this idea that all these ETs with their big heads, it's all telepathic. What if it's not?
Right. Well, and like the warm water feeling.
Yes.
What if it's a cascade of chemicals that they are able to trigger like dominoes inside of your body, and somehow that turns into communication.
Well, let me tell you something. I know it sounds like he had a really bad what happened with his wife, that she's dragging him, like, as far as what it did to his body, but it almost sounds like he was having symptoms, maybe part of his contact with them somehow. I know it's hard to prove, but
right. And if you read the book, you find out there's another element in there that I only found out at the end, and it's like it's like my head spun around when I heard it from his mom. So that's a twist that you have to read the book to find out.
Sure, absolutely. It was, to me, I'm thinking, okay. And sometimes, obviously, and I want to say that thing, when that thing like squirted him with whatever that was causing, that's, to me, that's significant.
Yeah. And what was that? What was that? What was the squirt damage separate from the radiation damage?
Yes. And then, like, you're telling me the doctors are here like, it's burn, no, it's radiation, no, it's chemical. It's like
right.
But that sounds serious. It's a very serious whatever it was serious.
Right. And how often do doctors see radiation burns?
Exactly.
Unless you work near.
I'm sure they must have asked them, what happened to you? It's like, tell them.
Yeah.
An alien ship squirted something at me. I don't know.
Well, that's like, what he was trying to tell them.
To be a fly on the wall and have listened to that conversation?
Well, and of course, supposedly he was trying to tell the doctors exactly what happened, and his friend, his employee, the one that brought him to the hospital, he's like
Right.
trying to shut him up, because the
Like,
doctors
no,
are.
shush, shush. Be quiet, be quiet.
Yeah, this is not going to turn out well if you tell them the
You're
truth.
going to end up in the padded room. Be quiet.
Right.
Bandaged up, but you're going to be in the
In
padded
addition
room.
to having, they had to do what they call debridement. When you
Yes,
get a heavy
yes.
burn, your
God, I hear
skin
that's
is
very
just
painful.
cooked, and so they have to peel it off.
Oh.
Either that, or the other one is that's one way of debridement, is to just peel it off, and that's very painful. The other one is to wrap it and keep it moist until your body eats the burned part. It's just really both
like it
are
drops
really
off. I imagine.
it's just really
like
gruesome.
you shed the skin.
Yeah.
Almost like when you get a real bad sunburn, that you peel. Maybe it was something like that. Pat, thank you so much. It has been absolutely wonderful to talk to you.
This is fun. I love it when it just goes all over the place.
Oh, well, let me tell you, at this point, I mean, let me tell you something. You that thing about if you find whatever he buried, and this thing that he put an explosive in, it's like, oh my God.
I know.
Okay, a booby trap of all things.
And it's so possible for him.
But you know what? This is the thing. I'm thinking, if what you said, like he was weaker when this thing happened, how far could he really go with this thing as far as to bury it? Let's say from where?
Well, he drove.
But let me ask you something, because I know you said that now that area is overgrown.
Yeah.
Back then, would he have been able to drive his truck out there around that area, or no?
He would have been able to get close. Supposedly, we know where he parked his truck.
Okay.
So how far he walked with the thing before he buried it, I don't know.
See, that's the part again. That thing that
Yeah.
you observed. That what were his physical limitations?
Right.
As far as how far was he going to go with this?
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, like when I met him, he was saying that he could only walk about 10 feet without stopping to catch his breath.
You said that. Okay.
That's not very far.
No, it's not. Plus, no. Again, thank you so much. It's been absolute. I want to wish you the best of luck, and I will be following up with you on this for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I will give you a heads up when we have something new to report for sure.
Yes, you got it.
Thank you so much for inviting me again.
It's been my pleasure. This has been fascinating.
Awesome. Thank you, Marlene.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow. Let me tell you some of everything that she told me. I think the best one is he tells her husband that he's booby trapped the thing. And you know what? Maybe it's just BS. And he just did it just to like, hey, I'm going to keep people away from it. But what if not? I mean, you cannot go out there assuming that he is BSing about having booby trapped that thing. Think about it. I'm thinking, and it's like, God. And again, it's like, like I said, I mean, you go from like, okay, how much could he physically have done? How far could he have gone? How far could he have driven in the truck? Let's say he had this thing in this truck. And what are they going to find? An empty box? An ET cadaver? Or an animal? Or God forbid, a human? That would be, talk about the Pandora's box opening up. I mean, beside the human, the ET part, right? That would be like, what? And that thing about his wife's personality change. And see, this is the thing with, she was explaining to me, well, you all heard it, which is like, he was out there for at least a few years before, and everything seemed to be okay. His wife wasn't living there, but he had his people working, and he was working, and he was doing okay. And then it seems like once he got that first sighting, like she was saying, of that first UFO, it progressively his life started to unravel, for lack of a better word. And this is the thing, like she's saying, okay, here they are. Obviously they have plans. I'm thinking this sounds like an okay marriage, because they were going to build a house like close by, a piece of land. I mean, to me, that sounds like a relationship that's okay. And he's got this little apartment so they can live there while this house is getting built. And then all of a sudden, let me tell you something. I come out and I see somebody eating raw ground beef, and it'd be like, nope, nope. All right, this is where Marlene gets off the ride. Nope. Oh, well, no, I take that back. Wait. Let's back up. If somebody slams a door on my hand and drags me around for about a mile, I'm sorry, that's attempted murder in my book. All right, that's attempted murder. Especially because, I don't know, that right there, that was very like, that I don't know, that whole thing of what happened with his wife's personality, that's very dark. And again, this is part of, I think, what Pat was trying to say. And this is, I think, the dichotomy that a lot of people who are into the ET UFOs, that everybody wants to see this ET UFO encounter be totally positive. All right. You know, they're going to help us. They're going to impart knowledge. They're going to save us from blowing ourselves up. Hold on, let me turn off this fan now. I'm cold. These the temperatures are dripping down here. It's supposed to go down into the 30s tonight. But anyway. And you know, everybody wants the kumbaya encounter. But what if it's not? What if it's not? What if there is something about these ETs that is not compatible with us in our world? It's not. And I hate to say it, but this thing's squirting something at them. I mean, if let's go with the you would think, okay, extraterrestrials have been around enough time on the earth, supposedly, that they would know that this is going to hurt us physically. Why would it do that? Again, there's almost like this psychopathic flavor to it. And I know a lot of people don't want to put the word ET, UFO, and psychopath in the same sentence, but that's where it leads me to. And all these sightings he had, and then like she was describing, where there's these parallels even between what was going on in Skinwalker Ranch, even now, okay, and then that it's not strictly a UFO ET experience, that there's a big giant undercurrent of paranormal activity, supernatural events. Because everybody says, oh, no, UFO, ET here, and ghost or paranormal or poltergeist or all this other stuff over here. No, two different things. And I hate to say it, but what she was describing was exactly what you hear, what was going on in Skinwalker Ranch. And I've heard it in other locations also that have a history of sightings, where there's experiences of, by the way, ugly supernatural events. When I mean ugly, I don't mean, the like he said, well, the old guy that walked across the room. All right, okay, that's pretty scary, but okay. When you're talking, I see a devil pulling himself out of the ground with a red slick body. Hello. Okay, the people at Skinwalker Ranch, I think the title of the book is Hunt for Skinwalker, I believe, where I think, I can't remember which personnel had sightings of like a wolf thing, like a dogman werewolf kind of thing. They were off site. They were not even there. This was back at their house. Or they had poltergeist activity. Like that's what I'm saying. There's all of a sudden, it's like, for all you ufologist people, yeah, they say don't cross the streams, but these streams are crossing. And then we can go down the rabbit hole of people that say that ETs are demonic, or demons are ETs, whichever way, whatever. What's first, the chicken or the egg? And I know there's people in that camp that believe that ETs are interdimensional beings that are demonic. And in other words, that what we call demonic have been ETs all along. Not the how can I tell you what? Not the visitor from another planet kind of scenario. Who knows? Or maybe we have both. Who knows? Okay, you guys. No, be quiet. You can tell.
That's because somebody wants to get on the pillow and there's somebody there, and one barks at the other one like, get off the pillow, and the other one's like, no, I'm not. But anyway, food for thought, right? Like, where is it that you think, okay, if I'm, and again, this man, he sounded like he was intelligent. When I meant intelligent, I mean, I don't mean that he was stupid, but like she said, that he was like that MacGyver kind of, mentality, that he was obviously he was working on airplanes, on repairing airplanes. And hey, you guys, cool it. Here, the enforcer. It's my enforcer. Hold on. There you go. So what? And I meant to ask her, but I don't want her to divulge her entire book either, but I want to ask her, was there something else going on in his life when this started happening? Was there, in the background that later on you found out about? Or was this guy just this plane mechanic working out on a hangar out in the middle of nowhere, Texas, and with a wife, and he's got plans to build a house, and all of a sudden he starts having these UFO sightings, and then sounds bad. And let me tell you something, the best has got to be the ET that shoots a blue thing and disintegrates everything. I just shot the ET too at the next one I saw. And the other part is, and I don't know, like I said, I don't want her to divulge all her book. Like, how many, remember, this guy's, it sounded like he had several guys working out there with him. In other words, witnesses. He's got a secretary who supposedly saw the little kid running around in the hangar. Was she able to catch up to her? And this is the things, it's not only finding people or witnesses, is if are they willing to talk? Are they willing to say one of two things? No, I never saw anything. I saw something, but I think he was crazy. Or yeah, I saw what he said and it looked like a little kid, but after that, in other words, basically gives credence to what this guy was experiencing. I don't know. Because that's a thing. Some people have ET UFOs experiences. There's no witnesses. This guy sound like, since it was more than once, he had plenty of witnesses, including the guy that got in a cow suit with him. I'm sorry. It's like, why not? Gilly, from the ghillie suit to a cow suit. I imagine those ETs must have been like, they're what? They're not what? Well, anyway, guys, I hope you like this interview with Pat O'Connell. I will have a link to the credits to her website, experiencers.com. That's starts with an X, no E in the front. Experiencers, plural.com. And again, go to SUBSTACK, sign up for my newsletter, go to MiamiGhostChronicles.com, mpPellicer.com. And I've got links to everything there. I've got links to all the videos. I've got links to all the podcasts or MP3 that you can download or listen to it. You click it and you can listen to it on the browser if you don't want to download it. Or if you want to download the MP3, you can. Whatever you would like to do. Or links. I've got links also to different podcast platforms where you can find the show. Again, once you go on those podcast platforms, you are going to get commercial interruptions. Sorry. I got to make money somehow, right? But yeah. But if not, you can go to my website and I've got everything there for free. And yeah, I've got a lot of great guests coming on for 2026. As a matter of fact, I'm already planning season 20 of Stories of the Supernatural, which covers July to December of 2026. I'm already looking for guests to go in there. So if you know of anyone, or you are a person, an author, expert, or just somebody that's had an experience, I'll interview you. Get a hold of me. If you want to remain anonymous, I can do that too. I know how to do an interview, and you can remain anonymous if you're concerned about that. All right. And which or not, if you've written a book, if you've got experience in that field. I've interviewed a bunch of hunters,
that have stories to talk about having to do with Bigfoot and things that they have come across while they're out there in the woods hunting. These are outdoorsmen, all right? These are people that know terrain, and when they hear or see something, they know what is and what it isn't. So if you fall into any of those, Marlene at MiamiGhostChronicles.com. Like I said, there's links. Go to the website. There's a way to find me there and email me. And like I said, I'll set up a date and we'll do the interview. I'll take care of the hard part. How's that? All you have to do is show up. So anyway, guys, I hope you like this interview. I will be back soon next week with a lot more interesting stories of the supernatural. Till next time, you are all wonderful. Take care.